On 27 June 2025, a peace agreement was signed between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. The ceremony took place in Washington, D.C., where both countries' foreign ministers sat beside U.S. officials, applauding what was described as a historic diplomatic breakthrough. Secretary Marco Rubio welcomed the agreement as a major step toward ending decades of conflict. Donald Trump, taking the credit for facilitating the deal, publicly declared that his administration had resolved one of Africa's longest-running wars. For those unfamiliar with the dynamics of this conflict, the moment appeared to offer real hope. But for those who understand the history and reality on the ground, this agreement is not a pathway to peace. It is a diplomatic illusion. Behind the smiles and staged signatures lies a text designed to fail, drafted in terms that benefit one side only: Rwanda. To understand why, one must return to the roots of the conflict. For over 2 decades, Eastern Congo has endured a brutal and complex war that has claimed more than 7 million lives. Rebel groups, foreign armies, and proxy militias have ravaged the region. Among the most significant external actors has been Rwanda, which has consistently intervened in Congolese territory through direct military presence and through its armed proxy, the M23 movement. Repeated United Nations reports have documented Rwanda's support to M23, its role in illegal mining, the looting of Congolese natural resources, and its involvement in crimes against civilians. The international community has responded with sanctions, condemnations, and arms embargoes, all specifically targeting Rwanda's military role in the conflict. These include UN Security Council resolutions and U.S. sanctions clearly identifying Rwanda's troop presence in Congo as illegal and destabilizing. Yet, when pressure mounted in 2025 for a negotiated peace, Rwanda did not arrive at the table weakened. Instead, it came prepared with a plan. One designed not to resolve the conflict, but to legitimize its ongoing presence in eastern DRC. For the Congolese government, weakened militarily and politically, diplomacy seemed the only remaining option. The National Army had failed to regain control of M23-held territories. Regional partners were unreliable. The population was desperate. In that context, sitting down to negotiate with Rwanda, the very actor fueling the conflict, was seen as a necessary evil. However, a closer reading of the peace agreement and of the communications surrounding it, especially from Rwandan authorities, reveals something else entirely. The agreement does not demand the withdrawal of Rwandan troops from DRC. Instead, it refers ambiguously to the removal of security measures. This language is not accidental. It mirrors Rwanda's long-standing tactic of denying that its soldiers are in the DRC while claiming that it has merely taken protective security measures at its borders. 2 days before the agreement was signed, Rwanda's foreign minister publicly declared on social media that there would be no mention of troop withdrawal in the peace deal. And indeed, there wasn't. That omission alone renders the agreement structurally flawed. It fails to address the very issue at the core of the conflict. That such language was accepted by the United States, a country that has not only sanctioned Rwanda for its role in Congo, but has also endorsed UN resolutions demanding troop withdrawal, is not only ironic but profoundly dishonest, diplomatically irresponsible, and hypocritical. Even more revealing is what the agreement does include. One of its main conditions is the neutralization and repatriation of the FDLR, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, a rebel group that Rwanda has consistently claimed poses an existential threat to its national security. This provision is critical. It states that only after the FDLR has been neutralized and repatriated will Rwanda consider removing its so-called security measures. In other words, the responsibility for peace now lies entirely with the DRC. If the FDLR is not dismantled, Rwanda will blame Kinshasa for violating the agreement and justify its continued presence in eastern Congo. Shortly after the signature of the agreement, Rwandan Foreign Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe declared, "The first order of business is to begin implementation of the concept of operations for the neutralization of FDLR, to be accompanied by a lifting of Rwanda's defensive measures." That single sentence explains exactly how Rwanda interprets this accord. For Kigali, peace begins not with its own withdrawal, but with Congo taking the first step, neutralizing the FDLR. Rwanda knows full well that this is an impossible task. More importantly, Rwanda did not even request to participate in the dismantling process, as it had in previous joint operations. Why? Because if the operation fails, Rwanda can stand back, blame the DRC, and justify the continuation of its so-called security measures in the region. This is the heart of the trap. The narrative that the FDLR is a serious, organized threat to Rwanda is simply not supported by facts. Rwanda has invoked this claim repeatedly over the years to justify its interventions in Congo, yet the FDLR has not attacked Rwandan territory in over 2 decades. It does not control even a square meter of land in Rwanda. Its fighters are poorly armed, scattered, and largely marginalized. Rwanda's real motives in Congo, as documented in various UN and independent reports, are economic and geopolitical. The control of strategic territory and access to mineral wealth. If the FDLR were truly the threat Rwanda claims it is, one would expect Kigali to have dismantled the group during its many previous military operations. There have been several, Umoja Wetu, Kimya II, Amani Leo, and others, all aimed at eliminating the FDLR, some even conducted in collaboration with MONUSCO and the Congolese army. Yet these operations failed to dismantle the group, and Rwanda has continued to use its existence as justification for its presence in Congo. Furthermore, much of the territory historically associated with the FDLR is now under M23 or Rwandan-backed control. This makes any neutralization campaign logistically impossible for the Congolese army to carry out, given that they do not control those zones. At various occasions, various military and political leaders in Rwanda admitted the facts that FDLR is not a threat. Perhaps the most damning contradiction in Rwanda's claim is the case of General Rwanda. He was the founding commander of the FDLR, the very group that Rwanda now insists is a genocidal threat. When Rwanda returned to Rwanda with over 1,000 of his men, he was not arrested, tried, or punished. On the contrary, he was integrated into the Rwandan military structure, eventually appointed as head of prisons, and retired with honors. If Rwanda genuinely believed the FDLR is a genocidal group preparing to attack its territory, why was its founder received with open arms and never prosecuted? The answer is simple. Rwanda knows very well that the FDLR is no longer a threat, but invoking its name serves a political purpose. It plays on the deep emotional scars left by the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. It manipulates international opinion and neutralizes criticism by suggesting that Rwanda is once again at risk of genocide. It is a psychological tactic designed to discredit scrutiny and frame Rwanda as a perpetual victim, rather than a regional aggressor. In truth, the neutralization of the FDLR is not possible under current conditions. Multiple military campaigns have failed. The areas where the group allegedly operates are either controlled by Rwanda's proxies or lie beyond the reach of the Congolese army. Even if the FDLR were fully dismantled, Rwanda could deploy disguised troops to terrorize local populations, particularly the Tutsi community, and blame it on the FDLR to justify remaining in Congo. They have done it in the past. In that way, the threat is eternal. It can always be recreated. Rwanda, by participating in this agreement, aimed to present itself as a peaceful and cooperative actor. It wanted to be seen as committed to peace. In doing so, it sought to reduce the growing international pressure that was being exercised on it, pressure to stop fueling the conflict in Congo, to withdraw its troops, and to comply with international sanctions that were piling up, especially from donor states. But at the same time, Rwanda was carefully and knowingly ensuring that the agreement would include sections that could be used to maintain the status quo, to justify its continued presence in Congo under the pretext of DRC's failure to implement. If Congo is accused of breaching the accord, Rwanda's international image improves, sanctions and diplomatic pressure ease or disappear, and it can stay longer in eastern Congo, where, as many reports confirm, it continues to loot minerals, particularly in North Kivu. That is the true strategy that brought Rwanda to the negotiating table. Another major reason why Rwanda will not voluntarily withdraw from Eastern Congo is its fear of exposure and accountability. The territories controlled by M23 and Rwandan forces have witnessed widespread atrocities, including massacres, sexual violence, forced displacement, and the targeting of civilians. The International Criminal Court has opened investigations into possible crimes against humanity committed in the region. However, these investigations have been obstructed due to the lack of access to areas under M23 control. As long as those zones remain under Rwanda's de facto occupation, evidence is kept from international investigators. If the Congolese government regains control, forensic access becomes possible, and with it, the full uncovering of the scale of these crimes. Rwanda's leadership and its military intelligence services understand this risk. Withdrawal from Congo could not only mean loss of influence and resources, but legal exposure at the highest level. That is another reason Rwanda cannot and will not leave voluntarily. In a book co-authored by René Mugenzi and Dr. Richard Capen, published in March 2025, titled Kagame and the DRC, The Failed Balkanization Agenda, they wrote in a chapter called Prolonging the Conflict Through Diplomacy. Ceasefire agreements and peace talks have been central to Rwanda's strategy of maintaining its influence in Eastern Congo. While these negotiations are ostensibly aimed at finding a peaceful solution to the conflict, they also serve to prolong M23's occupation of key areas. The international community, eager to see an end to the violence, has repeatedly engaged in diplomatic efforts to broker peace deals, but these efforts have often resulted in stalled negotiations that allow M23 to continue holding territory without fully disarming. The use of ceasefire agreements as a delaying tactic has been a hallmark of Rwanda's approach. By agreeing to peace talks and then renegotiating terms or delaying implementation, Rwanda has ensured that M23 remains entrenched in Kivu provinces for extended periods. Despite all of this, the U.S. government continues to promote the agreement as a success. Donald Trump and his team have loudly claimed to have ended one of Africa's bloodiest wars, but in truth, they have been manipulated. They have been deceived by one of the most cunning regimes on the continent, a regime that has perfected the art of international diplomacy while systematically undermining the sovereignty of its neighbors. For the Congolese people, this agreement raised hopes for peace, hopes for return, hopes for justice. But these hopes are being crushed once again. The deal signed in Washington is not a breakthrough, it is a trap. Crafted not to resolve conflict, but to entrench it. And while we all watch for the implementation of that so-called peace agreement, I can already predict what will come next. In the months ahead, Rwanda will be the first to accuse the DRC of breaching the agreement. The blame game will begin. The suffering of the Congolese people will not ease. The minerals will continue to flow out of Congo and into Rwanda. And it will remain like that. Rwanda and its M23 will stay controlling the east of Congo and rooting its resources. It will end only when the Rwandan regime is treated for what it is and spoken to in a language it understands and obeys. And that language is not peace agreements.